Good morning, everyone. Starting a little early. I've been doing the 7:30 thing, off and on quite a bit, I guess, over the last few months. Gives us a little extra time and makes you get up earlier. I don't know, drink some coffee, whatever. Today is the 16th of April, 2019. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. I've titled this live stream Out of the Box. I'm going to spend the first part of this going over some current events, and then I'm going to switch to something that'll have to do with the whole deal with Notre Dame and the mosque in Jerusalem. It's not the Dome of the Rock, by the way. A lot of people have made a mistake there. It's not the Dome of the Rock mosque that had a fire. It was and I don't even know how to say it, so I'm not going to try. But it's the other. There are several areas there on the Temple Mount, and the mosque that caught fire is just across from the Dome of the Rock. Let me know if the volume is okay. I've switched mics, of course, since my last deal, and I'm not sure that it's going to function just the way it needs to. I think it's going to be all right. Maybe I should turn it up just a little bit because this mic is a little higher quality than the other one, but it shouldn't modulate as much, if at all, especially here with no background noise. But if there is a problem, let me know if you wouldn't mind. Okay, the chat is on. Good morning, everyone, as you come in. Focus seems off. It's probably because we're having a storm here. And when we have a storm like this, I'm lucky I even have the internet. And so I have to reduce the bit rate on the video, which is normal for here. In other places, you'll notice when I've done this with my computer and the whole setup, that if they have a really good internet connection, I can go to a higher bit rate. I'll never get 4K out of it under the circumstances. You really need to have a direct line into a really high grade internet connection. But at any rate, it's better than no video at all, is the way I kind of look at it. So I hope you don't mind, and I apologize for the low quality. It's just my location. And we live in the Stone Age out here still. That might be some good things considering this 5G that's going in everywhere, which is definitely a problem. And I talked about that the other day, that President Trump is pushing that forward. And there are so many dangers in it, and I'm not really qualified to talk about all that. I've read a lot of papers about it. I've seen a lot of information, not just from people on YouTube, but scientific stuff. But, it just gets to the point where it just all gets so overwhelming. And my area of expertise isn't, the technology in 5G and all of this business. It's in another area, which most of you know. We're going to move to that part on the second half or so of this live stream. And like I say, if you don't like what I'm going to talk about towards the end of this, after I get done with some of the information, please feel free to go. Obviously, you don't have a ball and chain. I don't want to hear anybody complaining that, why are you bringing that up on here? Well, it's my business. Which brings up another point. I saw, like I say, I usually don't see too much on the comments, and I'm not even sure if it was on the comments of the chat, but I saw somebody that said, your intros are too long. Well, that's the way I do it. There's a story there. It's really kind of incredible how that happened. Pam Jones for Liberty, as most of you know, she deals a lot in chemtrails and the pedophilia problem and all that. And she's a very good graphic artist. That's what she did for years. And she designed all of these intros, except the one where you see me come on and say, I'm Roy Potter, I'm a former lieutenant colonel, and then it goes to my intro plate with the bridge and that. And when you hear the music from my movie, The Crimson Thread, it's called The Battle Arrangement, and opening scene battle arrangement. And that's my music. And when I use that, there's no copyright problems. But Pam Jones put these things entirely together without any instructions from me. She did it out of the goodness of her heart and sent them to me. And that's why you see, as I've said, the ads on on my channel, they're not paying me for those ads. They're paying the people that created the music and some of the other graphics that she used in putting those together. And I hope, she's never told me this, but if she does get paid for that, because it's her creation as well, and I'm not sure how all that works out, I'm very happy. I hope she does. I hope she gets some money from it. So anyway, the point is that she created these things without any input from me. And I'm going to keep using those, whether you like it or not. I've got some shorter ones like I used today, so you can see that I've got some variety there. But there is important information in those intros and in those exits, which normally you wouldn't know about unless I tell you. And Pam didn't know, but I think the Spirit guided her, and she put some very important things in there that will tell you a lot if you watch them. You could almost watch some of these intros and nothing else I do, and you could learn a lot from what she put in there. And I'm not going to go into any depth on it, but there's not just a story there about me. There are lessons, there are instructions, there are truths in those things, and I'm just going to leave it at that, because like a lot of other things, it's not a good idea to talk about. For those who have eyes to see, they will see, and for those who have ears to hear, they will hear. And I figure that's God's business, not mine. Okay, let's get into it. A lot of you aren't going to like some of this morning. I am going to read. In the description box below is a link to the Conservative Treehouse again. This one, again, an article by the last Refuge, and as I explained before, these people, I think, are probably former law enforcement and or intelligence folks, and everything they put out is very good. So I'm probably going to read the entire thing, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But it's in the description box, so you can go back and peruse it thoroughly at your leisure. Also, I might as well bring up the situation with Julian Assange just real quick. I think what we're looking at here is not a situation that's good for Assange, and I'm not going to go into other details, like so many other things that are going on, the Mueller report and all of that, what's being done behind the scenes and why and who's doing it, which we'll get into a little bit with the Conservative Treehouse and Last Refuge today. A lot of this stuff, the governments are so corrupt now that they don't tell you really anything that's true. Everything's about preserving their authority and their power, and that you'd almost expect that, and you do expect it in the Banana Republic, but in our nation, we were supposed to leave that kind of thing behind. It's a disease that you can't totally eradicate, but no one in our government has been courageous enough to call it out. Actually, Trump's been the first one, really. Reagan kind of went down that road, but not really. Just intimated at it. Trump's done more than anybody, but even he backs off of it. And so we're going to watch and see what he does now, and hopefully, the cleaning of house occurs. But I really don't think it's going to be as deep or as broad as it needs to be, and we'll cover a little bit of that today. Okay. As you know, I am critical of President Trump. At this point in time, and I've already said it, and I don't mind saying it. I'm almost looking, and I'm not a Democrat, but I don't look at party, I look at principle. And there are some problems with Tulsi Gabbard, as I said in one of my videos here a little while back. But out of all the people out there, I'm really giving her an ear. So just so that you know that, if Trump turns this thing around, if he starts doing what he said he was going to, and people are saying, oh, he is. No, he isn't. Okay? No, he isn't. But if, in fact, it all turns around here now that he can press forward, I'll be right behind him 100% again. Right now, I'm 50%, okay? And it all depends on what he does. But his press secretary, his White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, said this. When the wiki, and this is why I opened up with Julian Assange. Remember, time and time again, he said, and I mentioned this in a video the other day. Time and time again during the campaign, Trump said he loved WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks, gave him the information on the Clinton servers and all this stuff. Plus, it showed the war crimes that the U.S. committed, and that's the reason why our deep state is so upset, because it's like the Navy. When I can't stand to go to the movies because I'm sick and tired of seeing the military up there promoting itself. As you all know, I consider it a necessary evil. It's not something that should be worshipped. But at any rate, the Navy has this ad, and it says, the United States Navy, a global force for good. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And so, I just can't stand to go to the movies and watch that stuff. But our nation won't repent because we've got these nasty, corrupt leaders that want to keep us in wars for various reasons. And good on Julian Assange and anybody like him that has gone forward and tried to show not only our corruption, but of course the corruption of a lot of other governments. But he's basically honed in on the Europeans, the United States, and of course Russia. But Sarah Sanders, brought this up when Trump said, I love WikiLeaks way back when he was in the campaign. And I mentioned this the other day, so pardon me, but I've got to bring it up again. Her quote is this: Trump was kidding when he said, I love WikiLeaks in 2016. Okay. Well, my response to that is, was he kidding about everything else he said? If he was kidding about that, as serious as that is, in all of its aspects, was he also kidding about everything else? And at this point in time, except for the economy, which I still question it's as good as it's being promoted as being by the administration, almost nothing else has happened. So if he was kidding about this, what's the difference between kidding and lying then? He said he would never lie to us. So now we're stuck in a position, well, okay, he's not lying, but he's kidding? Now I realize he's strapped down by all these horrible things that have been going on in the government, and from the Five Eyes and all of that. But as I've pointed out, and I will continue to point out, he needs to change the guard. Okay, he needs to change those who are in his administration, and there are ways to do that, and he refuses to. So I find fault with him on that. So I wanted to bring that up with Sarah Sanders because I think it's important. Again, what's the difference between kidding and lying? Now, what do we do? It's sort of like with well, I won't go there, but it's a problem. So now is the out, he was just kidding about that? Is that going to be the answer when he doesn't do what he said he was going to do? President Trump, as I've said before, made promises to us and to God, and he's reneging on the promises he made to both of us. At least it appears that way, and I'm going to call it like I see it until things change. Well, I'll still call it like I see it, but hopefully it'll change. Hopefully we'll see a change in what he's doing now, but I don't see it even yet. Okay, let's go to this last Refuge article because I think it's important, and I would suggest all of you take the time to read the article that's in the description box. I'm going to actually read it in its entirety here. Why is this important? Because it shows how the deep state protected itself in this coup. This is something, things in government, they have what they call contingency plans. The DoD, for instance, the Department of Defense, has contingency plans for every possible scenario in every possible part of the world. When something erupts in, let's say, Burma. Well, Burma doesn't exist anymore, I suppose. Well, let's say something erupts in Sudan, okay? They already have plans for how to approach the most likely scenario. I worked on some of those, so I know. Okay, and they just pull the file out, and then they tweak it to fit the situation that they want to address. That's all. That happens everywhere. Well, the CIA and the FBI and the intelligence community does the same thing. It's really all one and the same. And so these contingency plans on how to attack a person who might try to come in and destabilize the deep state and return us to a constitutional republic. Those plans have been around for a long time. Just a fact. So what the conservative Treehouse has done here is gone through and explained who the key players are, why they're there. And this thing that's really interesting is this Jesse K. Lew, who was the attorney in the government that handled a lot of things. And we're going to see a lot of that. Almost all of them cover-ups of one sort or another to protect members of the government. That's why this is so important, because her name was given to Trump to be the number 3 in the DOJ. And at first, he agreed. And then Barr got in there. I think this is the right order of things. Barr withdrew it, which to me is probably even more so than saying that this coup was a spying operation. Removing Lew from the number 3 spot in the DOJ, to me, is the most significant event that Barr has done to prove that he really does that he knows he needs to do something and do it quick. It was a very positive, heartening move now that I understand what happened there. Now, he can't get totally rid of Lew because Lew holds the position for the District of Columbia. And the way that the regulations, and maybe it's even a law, I'm not sure, because Congress is going to protect itself, like the sex, slush fund, their ability to, supposedly it's changed now, but I know they have some exceptions to their inside trading and those types of things. Their own health insurance, all that baloney that they do for themselves. Well, covering their tracks is one of the things they do, and Lew is there to do that. And so they made this D.C. position that she holds, that she's now back in, a permanent position that cannot be changed by the DOJ itself. In other words, the AG has no choice but to keep her in that position. But she's not going to be the number 3 at the DOJ. Sorry, like I said, it's storming out here. People are probably running into each other and all kinds of crazy stuff. I'd shut the window, but it's a little, I think I will. Well, that's all right. You guys don't mind, do you? There's a little background noise. It'll go away. Okay, so let's read this because I think it's that important, and then go back and check it out for yourself. The corruption of Jesse K. Lew. What do the following 4 points have in common? The manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding the Awan brothers. Remember them? We've hardly heard anything about these spies that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and everybody put in there, and how they got into the computers and stole information. How come none of those guys have been prosecuted? But they go after Assange. Like I said, Assange is a scapegoat to try to change this narrative. Sorry, I interrupted again. What do the following points have in common? The manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding the Awan brothers and how they escaped full accountability, likely due to need to protect politicians, the House of Representatives, the sweetheart plea deal. Number 2, the manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Security Director James Wolfe, and how he was allowed to plead only to lying to investigators when the evidence was clear from the outset, how he leaked classified information to his journalist concubine. Again, likely due to the need to protect politicians, this time in the Senate, the Special Select Committee on the Senate Special Committee on Intelligence. Now, again, I'm quoting this directly from the article, and I hope that Conservative Treehouse doesn't get upset at me for doing this, but I do think it's just that important. And so I just have to read the whole thing. Again, go to their website, subscribe to them, go read this article for yourself, and a lot of other great things that are on there. Okay, but this is really important because this is the key. This is where we are now, and that's why it's so important. Number 3, the manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding Obama lawyer Greg Craig, who was just indicted, right? And how he escaped. They're making a big deal about him being the first in Obama to go down, but listen. And how he escaped accountability for FARA violations. That's the Foreign Affairs Relations Act. I forget exactly how it goes, but it's basically, people are working for a foreign government, they have to register. He escaped accountability for FARA violations by running out the statute of limitations and burying Mueller's evidence for 18 months. Again, likely due to the need to protect politicians in the Obama White House. Number 4, the manipulated D.C. legal case, a non-filing surrounding former FBI Director Andrew McCabe for lying to INSD investigators about his media leaks. Again, likely due to the need to protect the administrative state. The criminal referral of April 19, 2018, grand jury approximately July 2018. Status. Why is it taking so long? McCabe continues to do what he does because he feels he's protected. He thinks, and actually rightly so, that they're not going to get to him. And you'll see why here in a minute. And this is very disturbing, but it figures, doesn't it? If you note, the common thread is U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jesse K. Liu. Well, you would be entirely accurate, but wait, we've only just begun. Pay attention to the timelines. While newly confirmed Attorney General William Barr is getting his arms around ongoing corruption within the organization he is now attempting to lead, there was an announcement on March 5th about U.S. Attorney Jesse Liu becoming the number 3 official at the DOJ. I just mentioned that. 3 weeks later, on March 28th, there was an announcement about a change of plans, and U.S. Attorney Jesse Liu's name was withdrawn from consideration. In addition to AG Bill Barr getting his arms around issues within the department, what else happened between March 5th and March 28th that would so drastically change plans for Ms. Liu? On March 21st, Representatives Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows send a letter to Attorney General Barr wanting to know what is the status of the year-old criminal referral to fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. And then he gives a PDF in this article, which is why I say you need to go read it so that you can see it for yourself what Jim Jordan and Meadows sent. Answering the letter from Jordan and Meadows would be easy. The AG picks up the phone, calls Ms. Liu, asks a question, and then sends back a response. Except, well, there was no response. Instead, a week after receiving the letter, Ms. Liu's name is withdrawn from consideration for promotion. And Barr did that. And later, AG Barr admits there was spying. Whoa! All those people that got off the 4 cases I talked about at the beginning that they brought up, that the last Refuge here is talking about, Ms. Liu helped to cover those up. And the situation is so much like what happened at the Bundy Ranch and at the Hammond Ranch and the whole thing up in Oregon. This is how the DOJ has been operating. They plant evidence on innocent people. They do parallel construction. They put evidence in the media and in other places and then come around and say, oh, look what we found. That's how they've been operating for a long, long time. Rather than protecting us in the exercise of our God-given, constitutionally protected rights, the DOJ and the FBI have been subverting them for and in behalf of people like Clinton, Obama, Holder, Lynch, Soros, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, continuing. Keep in mind, Meadows and Jordan obviously suspected, as did we, that no DOJ case against McCabe was being pursued. We've been hearing, McCabe's being investigated. I've been saying, what's going on here? How long have I been saying that now? A grand jury investigation doesn't take this long. Not on something this easy, where it's obvious. He made public statements, all kinds of things. McCabe did. And here they're saying the same thing. Keep in mind, Meadows and Jordan obviously suspected, as did we, that no DOJ case against McCabe was being pursued. After all, the evidence was previously gathered. It doesn't take a year. What have I been saying? It's a cover-up. Trump has not acted. Why? He didn't have a proper AG? There are other ways. But now there's no excuse. Unless Barr could still hold back. I mean, if he is actually doing this after what we know about his background, if he's actually doing this, his life is in danger. Do you realize that? Do you realize if he's on the up and up on trying to clean this mess up, his life is in danger? They're going to do things to him, threaten his family. So now we got to start praying for that God will protect Barr. Additionally, when Mark Meadows is directly asked about the status of this specific issue today with Maria Bartiromo, what does he answer? He doesn't. He avoids the question completely. Put it all together and be intellectually honest. McCabe's current non-worried book tour status is directly in line with the politically convenient Awan, Wolf, and Craig approach. See the picture? Lou's protecting him, and Lou works for the deep state, the IC, and Hillary Clinton. And Obama. See? Obviously, we don't yet have a solid history to reference A.G. Barr's motive and intentions. In other words, cautious optimism. So the last Refuge feels the same way about Barr that I do, but they're seeing this as a cautious optimism, that maybe he's really serious about cleaning things up. However, granting benefit of the doubt, the conservative Treehouse can imagine an eyes-wide-open diplomatic response from any Bill Barr hands-around-it line of inquiry. Hence, Lou was withdrawn. Now, some might ask why Barr would simultaneously make Jessie Lou the chair of the Attorney General Advisory Committee on the same day her name is withdrawn. However, and this is what I was talking about the D.C. position. However, Barr doesn't have a choice about the D.C. U.S. Attorney sitting in the Attorney General Advisory Committee. By law, the Attorney General can pick all of the AGAC members with one exception. The D.C. U.S. Attorney is required to be a member. See how they covered themselves? The D.C. swamp covered themselves? Nice little deep state continuity trick. Given that Barr is bringing in people from outside the DOJ, now this is interesting. He's not just using in-house DOJ attorneys. This is incredible. Given that, and I didn't know this, given that Barr is bringing in people from outside the DOJ, specifically from his prior law practice, that he knows he can trust, this is what Trump should have done. This is exactly what Trump should have done. And Barr did it. He brought in attorneys from outside the DOJ. Wow. Now this kind of goes along with the 26 or the 96 page report that's in the White House safe that Trump had some investigative team, probably Keith Schiller and those guys, put together to counter anything that comes out of the Mueller case and all of that. But here's real action. I got to read this again. Given that Barr is bringing in people from outside the DOJ, specifically from his prior law practice that he knows he can trust, conservative Treehouse suspects Barr made Lou chairwoman of the AGAC for two reasons. One, keep eyes on her. Now that's legitimate when he can't remove her anyway. And two, busy her with administrative work. I'm getting to like Barr more and more. I'm still upset at him for allowing that murder of Vicky Weaver and that whole situation, and the stuff on Waco and the stuff on the Patriot Act and his position on the Fourth Amendment and the Second Amendment. But this is incredible. So it's like I've anticipated that if Barr does anything, it's going to be because he wants to really, not like Mueller, cover up the crimes, but he wants to clean out the organizations of the DOJ and the FBI because he wants to save those institutions. So, but wait, it gets better. Accepting that Ms. Jessie Lou is a career participant in the DOJ aspects of deep state preservation, even acting in a role as Deputy Chief of Staff for the DOJ National Security Division. Can you believe this? That's where she was. Yes, the DOJ National Security Division. At the heart of the FISA issues. See where she is? Why Barr finally figured out, hey, there really is spying going on here? This is why. This was the first tip-off. Barr may have, talking to DeGeneva and whoever else he talked to before he accepted this, this is the first concrete evidence on this Lou lady, apparently. At the heart of the FISA issues, and remembering that Ms. Lou was also a member of the Trump transition team, so she was on the inside. See what I mean about Trump? What the hell? But this is the kicker. Well, Who the hell, that's their word, who the hell recommended her for those roles? Priebus? Bannon? Kushner? Conway? Who? This gets really interesting. There's still a mole in the White House, ladies and gentlemen. There's still an operative in there, apparently. Someone inside the Trump operation had to recommend Jessie Liu, knowing what she was and who she was and her capabilities in protecting the deep state, McCabe, Comey, everybody. As a member of the transition team, knowing full well her ideology would protect the administrative state. Let me read that again. See how important this is? Someone inside the Trump operation had to recommend Jessie Liu as a member of the transition team, knowing full well her ideology would protect the administrative state. And of course, being on the inside, she could get firsthand information and counter. Who was that person who recommended her and brought her in? They never name who it is, but I just gave you some possibilities. Additionally, regarding the recent March 5th, 2019 recommendation for Associate Attorney General position number 3, there has to be a point of contact between the DOJ and the inner circle of the White House. A person who could carry a recommendation from the DOJ institution internally to President Trump. Who is that person specifically? Or was it Sessions? Let me read that again, because this is important in trying to narrow down who this person may have been who brought Liu into the transition team. Additionally, regarding the recent March 5th, 2019 recommendation for Associate Attorney General number 3, which Barr removed her from after he found out all this, there has to be a point of contact between the DOJ and the inner circle of the White House. A person who would carry a recommendation from the DOJ institution internally to President Trump. Who is that person specifically? In the 2016-17 recommending transition member is the same, if the 2016-17 recommending transition member is the same as the 2019 recommending administration member, well, that's the person who is directly working to the detriment of President Trump's agenda. President Trump, you need to read this. You need to read it today. Again, for those who might prefer to look away from cold data, go back to the 4 points of specific reference we started with and research. Damn, these guys are good. Number 1, the manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding the Awan brothers and how they escaped the full accountability. Number 2, the manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding Security Director James Wolfe. Number 3, the manipulated D.C. legal case surrounding Obama lawyer Greg Craig. Number 4, and I'm skipping a lot here, but the manipulated D.C. legal case, a non-filing surrounding former FBI Director Andrew McCabe for lying. Look up those specific backstories right there in combination with the non-accountability outcomes of the 2 previous Inspector General reports. Yeah. Is a big part of the corruption problem. If AG Bill Barr intends to save these institutions, he has his work cut out for him. Question. If the DOJ Office of Inspector General found no intentional DOJ and FBI malfeasance in the June 18 report covering the totality of the 2016 election, sounds incredibly impossible. We know more than that then. And no direct evidence of political bias within the decision-making process of the officials being reviewed, we know that's not true. There was. Why was the IG backing off that? What's the likelihood of the same OIG finding malfeasance as it relates to DOJ, FBI, FISA activity and the exact same people? In other words, he's saying the IG might not come up with anything unless Barr presses the issue, and getting rid of Liu may have sent this message to Horowitz. You better tell me the truth, buddy, or I'm going to cut your nuts off. Let's find out. Sorry I'm so graphic. But that's how important this is. See, I'm not, I'm not a flower child. Okay, I'm really not. I hope I didn't offend anybody's ears there. The extensive OIG, Office of Inspector General election period report found no DOJ FBI misconduct, only some bad judgment. Remember that? And we're all going, what the hell are you talking about? You're covering this up. That's not bad judgment. That's criminal behavior. That's interfering in an election. That's spying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There were no criminal referrals from those. There were recommendations for internal improvements, which FBI Director Wray, who's a snake, said the FBI would implement. That's the next thing Trump needs to do. He needs to fire Wray. Trust Wray. Trust Sessions. Trust Rosenstein. Trust Horowitz. That should tell you who those people work for that said that. It's important to note the Office of Inspector General FISA review investigation of potential FISA abuses, opened March 28, 2018, was launched 3 months prior to the election activity final report in June 2018. June 14, 2018. There was obvious investigative overlap. However, the June report said, no evidence of intentional misconduct. The OIG is dirty. Again, some of this might slip past you quickly, so go back and look at it. But this is very important information because, again, it's showing that Bill Barr, what he's up against and what he's already done to move forward, okay? Why he knows they're spying, because this thing with Jesse Liu, that was the first indication that there was real evidence to the spying and the misuse of the FISA. The time, which by the way, I've been talking about for a long time, the FBI has been, remember, even before the FISA, okay, they were misusing the NSA. The FBI has been, the Department of Justice, all of the alphabet agencies have been misusing the NSA. Isn't that what Admiral Rogers went and told Trump about? Yes. And which is why Clapper and Brennan, those guys, considered him an enemy and wanted him to get fired. His life is in danger too, or was. He might be out in the clear now, but the time frame covered by the Election Activity Review and the FISA Activity Review are the same. The topics are different, FISA being more specific, but the people under review and the time frames therein are identical. Duh. If the OIG found no intentional corrupt activity in the June 18th report, only bad judgment, no referrals were made, and time period and people are exactly the same, how can the OIG produce a post facto FISA review report with substantively different conclusions? It seems like you. Do you see what he's saying here? If the OIG has already cleared these people in previous reports, this thing that's coming up now that everybody's waiting for, including Barr, he can't change his position. Horowitz can't, because that'll mean either he's lying now or he's lying before. He was covering up now or he's covering up before. Do you see that they're mutually exclusive? The only difference is that Barr may hold him to it. Barr may say, baloney. You take this one in the crotch, buddy. You're going to say it like it is this time. And that's going to show that you were materially involved in obstruction of justice before and not doing your job, at the very minimum. Maybe covering up for a coup, maybe a part of it. Do you see how serious this is? However, that said, there is a narrow window of potential optimism for those seeking some measure of accountability inside report number 3, which is coming. DOJ official Bruce Orr is likely still employed for the same reason the dispatch of Peter Strzok and James Baker was delayed prior to the finalization of IG report number 2. The OIG and INSD inspection division can only reach those still inside the system. You see what he's saying? In other words, they're keeping them on, like Rosenstein, right? So that the internal system regulations and sanctions can occur, which do not prevent criminal sanctions as well. Do you see what's happening here? It's a lever. No, you can't leave because, you're going to stay right here, buddy. until we get through this. On the narrow issue of how the DOJ and FBI assembled, handled, and used the FISA application and subsequent Title I surveillance warrant against the Trump campaign and officials therein, Bruce Orr is the key and central witness for the OIG. Again, why he's there, because he's subject to the internal regulations that now can be used against him, as well as the criminal counts. Mr. Orr has testified that he was interviewed by I.G. Horowitz about his role in assembling the information that was later used in gaining a FISA Title I surveillance warrant without, important here, because he testified to this, without following the Woods procedure. In other words, verifying the data. In other words, proving that they didn't just make it up to get the warrant. The Woods procedure is to make sure that this type of thing doesn't happen, and they circumvented it and didn't do the Woods procedure. And then he says, note, and I've been saying this for a long time, note, Mr. Orr was never interviewed by John Huber. Neither was Victoria Tonsig's witness either. Unlike the previous OIG report number 2, election era issues, if the OIG can find direct and intentional gross misconduct by referencing traditional and historic FISA application assembly therein toward those officials who participated in the FISA assembly, then it becomes possible the OIG report could potentially outline that the FISA application resulted in serious Fourth Amendment civil rights violations. And that perspective could be a narrow opening toward legal issues for DOJ and FBI officials who participated in assembling an intentional and fraudulently based application to the FISA court. Unfortunately, that approach is a very high bar for the OIG to reach. And McCabe and these people know that. Again, the OIG would have to find direct evidence of gross misconduct resulting in civil rights violations. It's there, but now who's going to force him to say it considering what he said in the prior 2 reports? You see the problem? Right there we have proof that the system is corrupt. The defensive arguments by the corrupt group would be filled with legal justifications and internal process discussion. Lots of room to produce reasonable doubt in a court. See how evil these guys are? Also unfortunate, any finding of Fourth Amendment FISA abuse would be adverse to the interests of the larger U.S. intelligence apparatus, of course, and institutional participants who rely on the current use of the FISA process. Current officials would want to protect it. Which, again, if they don't realize that they have a criminal enterprise in the IC that's got access to this. It's really like giving a criminal an access to the red button for the nuclear weapons systems, the fail-safe. We got to do it. They've got to clean this out. Return it all to military intelligence. Get rid of the 17 agency deal and go back to real military intelligence. And I know there are weaknesses with that too, but the larger an organization it is, the more possibilities there are for corruption and an inability to give proper oversight, which is exactly what's happened here. I suspect the team of DOJ FBI officials who abused the FISA court and are now watching things unfold are also relying upon the institutional necessity of the FISA process to protect themselves from too much scrutiny and sunlight. You see what they're saying here? In other words, the government will not want to attack these guys because it would bring down the FISA system. And they're counting that the government won't do that. It's a protection. It's like a shield. It's like, bringing the little kids, Al-Qaeda bringing the little kids as human shields. That's what these guys use the FISA process to do, to protect themselves. An example of that unfortunate reality is found with HPSCI Chairman Devin Nunes advocating for FISA reauthorization on January 11, 2018, right in the middle of the explosive revelations of discovery of potential abuse. As HPSCI Chairman Devin Nunes knew, back in 2017 the FISA process was abused for corrupt political intent. However, he also knows FISA is a critical component and tool for the U.S. intelligence system and national security. And I've already said what the fix for that is. Currently, Mr. Nunes is advocating for a much larger conversation about FISA and Title I authority before any further congressional reauthorization. Good on him. We can only imagine the downstream political chaos if I.G. Horowitz started cracking open the doors to possible civil rights violations from Obama-era FISA abuse. Bullet. Prove the July 31st, 2016 Crossfire Hurricane operation originated from fraud by exposing the CIA operation that created the originating electronic communication memo. Declassify that 2-page electronic communication document that Brennan gave to Comey. Bullet. Release and declassify all of the Comey memos. That document the investigative steps taken by the FBI as an outcome of the operation coordinated by CIA Director John Brennan. And I've held John Brennan primarily responsible for this underneath of Obama from the start. Bullet. Reveal the November 2015 through April 2016 FISA 702 search query abuse by declassifying the April 2017 court opinion written by FISA court presiding judge Rosemary Collier. Show the FBI contractors behind the 85% fraudulent search queries. CrowdStrike, Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr. Remember, Admiral Rogers went in and said there's something screwy going on here. Bullet. Subpoena former DOJ NSD, National Security Division head John Carlin. We've heard that name before, haven't we? Or haul him in front of a grand jury and get his testimony about why he hid the abuse from the FISA court in October 2016. Why the DOJ NSD rushed the Carter Page application to beat NSA Director, here we are, Admiral Mike Rogers to the FISA court. And why Carlin quit immediately thereafter. And this is their quote, okay, this is not me. Squeeze this bastard's nuts in the proverbial legal vice. That's them, okay? Bullet. Prove the Carter Page Pfizer application was fraudulent and based on deceptions to the FISA court. Declassify the entire document and release the transcripts of those who signed the application and or depose those who have not yet testified. Bullet. Release all of the Lisa Page and Peter Strzok text messages without redactions. Let sunlight pour in on the actual conversations that were taking place when Crossfire Hurricane, July 16, and the FISA application, October 16, were taking place. Bullet. Release all of Bruce Orr's 302s, FBI notes from interviews and debriefing sessions, and other relevant documents associated with the interviews of Bruce Orr and his internal communications, including exculpatory evidence that Bruce Orr may have shared with FBI agent Joseph Pientka, and get a deposition from that Pientka fella. Bullet. Release the August 2nd, 2017 2-page scope memo. This has been talked about by Bongino quite a bit. The second scope memo, the first one was supposedly go after Russian collusion. Now the second one, okay, this is very important because it gave Mueller the cover to continue the coup. Released the August 2nd, 2017 2-page scope memo provided by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to Special Counsel Robert Mueller to advance the fraudulent Trump investigation and initiate the more purposeful obstruction of justice investigation. Yes, they were spying. Release this material and the entire corrupt construct is exposed. I hope you can see why I felt it necessary to read that entire article. Again, it's in the description box below. Please go look at it. It's extremely important, and I think it gave me some real hope that possibly Attorney General Barr is actually serious about trying to fix this. Okay, let's take a short break because what I'm going to get into next. If you don't want to talk about the Notre Dame thing and my viewpoint on it, it's not going to be spectacular because I'm going to go into something, like I said, it's going to be out of the box. It's not going to be what you expect. And I'm going to be quoting from my own book here. Okay? So if you're not interested in that, it is going to be kind of a religious history discussion to some extent. Right now is the time you'll want to go at this break, okay? But I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to play the Second Amendment short break piece with, let's Lieutenant Colonel Cooper for this little break, because as you know, our First Amendment is our most important right, but what keeps it in check for us, allowing it to use it, is the Second. The government doesn't like you using the Second Amendment. It happened at Bundy Ranch, for instance. And despite the fact that I think that was a tragedy that it went there, I'm also convinced from watching what happened that there would have been a slaughter there, that the government would have committed upon those people. It was all set up. They were set up just like President Trump was set up. And I could tell you a lot about it, but I do believe that if those people hadn't had a way to defend themselves, that the government, the BLM, the DOJ, and the FBI would have killed a lot of those people. It would have been another type of Waco, which I think was the intent. Okay, let's listen to this, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, hopefully that little break gave you a little chance to stretch, get a drink, take care of Mother Nature, whatever the case. All right. By the way, I failed to mention, I don't find all these things all the time myself because there's just so much. I have a number of people on Twitter who are very kind, even though I never answer them because I've had some problems with that in the past. And I hope, if you're listening, I hope you'll forgive me for not mentioning who you are or that I got them from you. I'll just say that there are people on Twitter that send me very good news information. And I do peruse that. I don't look at, comments on my videos that often, if at all. Usually there when I address a comment made on a video, I don't mean the chat, but on the comments, it's usually because somebody else calls me and says, "Hey, did you see this?" I'll say no. And they'll say, "Well, this is what happened," or "This is what they said." But I do want to thank those who send me this information. That little article from the last Refuge, the conservative Treehouse, was sent to me, and it was that important. So you folks that do that, I want to thank you so much. And a lot of you have done that, and I haven't gotten back with you. Just understand that there are reasons why I don't. I appreciate you doing it, but there are just some things I just can't do. Okay, and I'll explain maybe one of these days why that is. Okay, like I said, this next part is probably going to be very difficult for a lot of people, and yet I don't know what else to do. We're going to talk kind of in a roundabout way on this situation with with Notre Dame. That's how we say it, Notre Dame in French, I guess. I don't know French. What it means, of course, is Our Lady. And that's the first problem. This isn't to attack Catholicism. What I say isn't to attack Christianity. My gosh, where would we be without the teachings of the Beatitudes and the example of Jesus Christ? We'd be in worse off condition than we are. Even with those principles that he taught and exemplified in his life, most of the world doesn't follow it. And Christianity has been a brake on the horrible direction of the world. It's slowed it down. Yet we see today all of the bad things that are happening. I'm not even sure how I'm going to approach this. I've studied these things for a long time. And I want you to understand, again, I'm not attacking, well, let's say I'm not supporting traditional Christianity as it's been brought down to you. Okay? By and large. There are some exceptions. But by and large, traditional Christianity is not Judeo-Christian. You keep hearing people talk about our Western civilization being governed, being built upon Judeo-Christian tradition. I'm afraid that's not true. There are aspects of it that are there, certainly. Certainly. The Ten Commandments, for instance, are brought up. The Beatitudes, for instance. The concepts of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Jesus being descended from that group. Aspects are there because what happens? The devil, and I said this wrong the other day, the devil will tell you 99 truths to slip in that one lie. That's why I'm not a worshiper of a personality. I'm never going to go into a cult of personality. We have to stand by principle. Because the devil can appear to you as an angel of light. I guarantee you the devil can appear as Jesus Christ. And unless you know how to tell the difference, am I saying I do? Well, again, it goes back to principles. We are not built upon the governing factors of Western Europe have not, in fact, been solely based on Judeo-Christian tradition. In fact, it's Greco-Roman. It's pagan. Now, the bad thing about the word pagan is that we use it to describe everybody else but ourselves, right? So there's a problem with using that. I have nothing against pagans. Actually, intellectually and spiritually, they're more honest with themselves in a lot of ways than Christians are. So, like I said, what I'm going to say here is going to really disturb some people. And, of course, the impetus for me going in this direction was the event that happened in France with the burning down of Notre Dame. And I'm not sure it's a coincidence, probably isn't. The mosque, it's not the Dome of the Rock mosque, it's the other mosque. I think there are 3 of them up there. It's one of the others, the third sacred in Islam. Now, it wasn't burned down. Apparently the fire was controlled. But regardless, these 2 events happened on the same day. I'm not going to get into to the gematria, which some people have done, tying in President Trump's numbers and Macron's numbers and all that stuff. I'm not going to do that. First of all, I'm not sure that's accurate. I'm not going to get into some of the other aspects of studying those events using the methods of rabbinical hermeneutics, which are things like gematria, Natarikon, Thashrak, those types of things. I'm not going to do that. We would get bogged down. But I do want to point out that I don't believe, and this is why I have been on the outside of traditional Christianity for so long. I don't believe that modern Christians adhere to the true teachings of Jesus, number one, and certainly not to the concepts that he espoused as the restorer. That's really what he was. See, these things go back to the meanings in the Hebrew, and you have to move from the Greek language back into the Hebrew to even understand the New Testament. And that's not an easy task. That's why I say the Torah is so important, understanding what is true in the New Testament and what was used by Rome and other forces, other political forces, to point Christianity in a direction that was actually counter to its original intent. And a lot of you aren't going to like that. So we're not really built on Judeo-Christian ideas, mostly Greco-Roman. And because of the Greco-Roman influence and some of the interpretations that have been made by what Jesus was purportedly to have said in the New Testament, which is contrary, frankly, to the Torah, that he said not one jot or tittle shall pass away from. They've used the Greco-Roman influence and twisting the liberty that Jesus taught into accepting and promoting debauchery. Frankly, back, you all might, and I'm just going to show you this, you all know about this, at least you should if you don't. I wrote this book back in 1996. It's basically an autobiography. It's out of print too, you can't get it. But I taught, and there was a book before this called, I wrote it, I think it was in 86. It's called An Offender for a Word, which is a quote from Isaiah where they find men guilty of offending, by a word. In other words, an offender for a word rather than an action. In other words, if one person does something that's illegal, and they say that technically illegal, but not immorally illegal, they'll find one person guilty of it and another person not. We see that a lot today in our dual justice system. The way they treat Clinton, for instance, is the way they treat, like, say, Roger Stone. Okay, just as an example. You could say that all of this is just political corruption. No, it's based upon a corruption of truth. And a lot of what supposedly Christianity has taught in the last almost 2 millennia now has opened the door to us being susceptible to these things. I am not certain. The push is being made. You hear Shepard Smith on Fox when he's talking to that guy there in France about the burning of the cathedral. And Shepard Smith stopped him when he said that it looked like it was arson. Shepard Smith didn't want to go there, and probably rightfully so, because then, without proof at this point, we don't want to start fomenting violence against innocent people that had nothing to do with it, who may not have had anything to do with it. Could Muslim extremists have done this? Maybe, and I wouldn't put that aside. But then what do we do with the mosque in Jerusalem? I think there's a bigger program going on here. And again, I'm not going to get into the gematria and all of the occultic stuff on it. That just gets too far off. Let's just look at the big picture. Why was modern day Christian Europe able to be conquered, which it really has been, with a few exceptions? Hungary is a difference. The president there has been very strong in protecting Hungary's borders, not allowing it to go into a multicultural, diversified society, but to keep its own culture, which is really what nations are about. And Faith Goldie did an excellent explanation of this the other day, if you've seen her explanation of that. She left out a couple things I would have added, but you could go look at that and see. Faith Goldie. She's from Canada. She ran for mayor of Toronto, if I remember right. Of course, they wouldn't let her in there. But getting back to the subject at hand, Europe has been conquered. Christian Europe has been conquered. Almost every place that Christians are has been conquered. Some have stood up to it. We've seen the martyrdom, the murder of Christians all throughout Africa. So the basic tenets for Christianity, they're trying to wipe out right now. The ones that are still left that aren't Greco-Roman. Because believe me, the powers that be, the deep state, the New World Order, doesn't have any objections to basic Greco-Roman thought. I can't explain it any better than that. So they're trying to conquer Christianity. But when did God remove his protection from the Israelites, for instance? When they went against his word. When they started worshiping false gods. When they started, some of you aren't going to like this, when they started intermarrying with the nations of the world. Remember the other day I talked about the importance of families, the okiokos. A man's enemies shall be they of his own household, his own family, his own tribe. And that there's this group of white people who have liberal white people, destructive people who have actually hated their own DNA and have tried to destroy, they even say kill all whites, white genocide. The truth about where the white race came from, you can hear all the scientific arguments, but where they're really from and what they really did has been hidden from everyone. And I'm going to start sounding a lot like a white supremacist here, and that's not what it is. It's written in, it's interesting. You can be a Jewish supremacist, right? If you read the Torah in Genesis and you hear about Abraham, he's going to be the one, and his seed are going to be the one to be out there and take over all the nations, etc. And the Jews, one tribe out of the 12, claim that they have that. So people talk about Jewish nationalism. That's okay. If you speak out against it, I'm not saying you should, but if you do, people say, how dare you? But if you talk about any other type of racial nationalism, particularly white nationalism, they get upset. But historically, genetically, DNA-wise, there is something to this, and some people are starting to have the courage enough to talk about it, and I would be remiss if I didn't. So, what Christianity initially was a restoration of the ancient law of the Torah of Israel. And Jesus was the restorer of that, not replacing it with anything other than taking it to the next level, okay, of forgiveness and love and those types of things, which was in the Torah anyway. But what happened was, and I've talked about it in my other book that I wrote, and I've shown you this before. There was basically an intelligence operation run by the Roman Empire and the Herodian court against the resurgence of the Israelite laws amongst the Jewish people, the Judahites who were in Palestine at that time. And there were other tribes too, but everybody says, oh, they were all gone. But at any rate, I don't want to get it all too far in the weeds. But what I want to tell you is this, that one of the things that you're told, and this is, I guess, where I'm going, and I don't mean to attack anybody, because the basics, if you take the basics away and make them a part of you, the true Christian values, if you do that, you're going to be okay regardless. Okay, even if you get inside of an institution that has as its roots a pagan control of you. And I'm stepping on a lot of toes here, but again, I don't come to this lightly. It's been through a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of prayer, a lot of study. The Old Testament says you will not worship the Queen of Heaven. You're commanded not to worship the Queen of Heaven. And yet we have churches built to what we're told is the Mother of God, right? Mary, the Mother of God. There are actually two Marys. And again, I don't want to get into too much detail here. But the initial fall of mankind was brought about by an injection of foreign DNA to subvert God's creation. Boy, I'm really getting in the weeds here, aren't I? And we've been fighting that ever since. There's been this spiritual warfare in our flesh and in our spirits both, which are really the soul of man. Genesis says the spirit and the body are the soul of man. We get confused about what the soul is. People think the soul is a thing that, goes off and, whatever. No, the scripture says the spirit and the body are the soul of man. And there's been a war on that for a long time. And the storyline in Genesis and elsewhere is a real. It's like telling a child a story that they can understand, because the real truth of the matter is so vast and so complex that you have to water it down to the lowest common denominator. So what am I saying? I'm saying that Christianity is not what it purports to be. That it was, by and large, the institutional aspects of Christianity, let's put it that way. The formal institutions that have been around. And not all of them, I'm not saying that. But let's just take this in a broad stroke. And then you can distill it from there. And that's why I'm bringing this up to you, because I want you to start thinking about these things, because we are in cults of personality and we don't even realize it. And that's a dangerous position to be in. So why was Europe able to be taken down the way it was, Christian Europe? Because it was built on sandy soil. It was built on the cult of personality. It was built upon... It had a Trojan horse in it. That's the easiest way to describe it. It had a Trojan horse in it, and the Trojan horse was that God loves everyone after all. Even Jesus said, God loves you if you love me. If you have seen me, you've seen the Father. No one gets there to where God is unless they go by Jesus first. Now, this is a cult of personality thing, but in ancient times, remember, taking the name of somebody upon you is becoming that person. You get those attributes, and that's foreign to a lot of people. They think about being saved by Jesus as you just accept him as your Savior. But without the internal change of heart and mind, it's of no efficacy. So basically what happened is the truth was supplanted by a lie. Very small lie, but just big enough that the adversary can now attack us like the Assyrians attacked Israel for its worship of false gods, marrying outside of their nation, so to speak, their tribe. God set those boundaries, and man tries to change times and laws. They think that they can change times and laws. Isaiah talks about that in the latter days, and we've been seeing it. Am I attacking people that are in an interracial marriage? No. But what I'm saying is that we have allowed foreign gods to come into us under the guise of Christianity, and they are not. So I'm not sure how the cathedral at Notre Dame caught on fire, or the mosque on the Temple Mount, and I don't think it matters. I think what really is being said here to us is that God's protection was obviously not there in neither place. Pretty heavy information. I want to read from my book here. By the way, I want to tell you what I did this morning. I was thinking about this situation in Paris and the situation in Jerusalem. And I'm not saying this meant anything, but I got this feeling that I needed to put a straight line, straight edge between Jerusalem and Paris. And that line intersected two other places of note. And there may be more. I don't know. I didn't look that close. I don't want to make it an all-morning study. But that line intersected, as I put the straight edge between Jerusalem and Paris, it intersected two other places of note. One was Athens. What did I say a few minutes ago? Greco-Roman. And Dublin, Ireland. File that away. Just file it away. I'm not going to take it any further than that. Although the Athens intersection, I went, wow, this is kind of different. Because it's kind of saying what I said. But a few minutes ago about the Greco-Roman actually supplanting Judeo-Christian. The Council of Yavna, I might as well mention this as well, which happened after the fall of the Second Temple, was basically rabbinic Judaism that was allowed to continue by the Romans because they altered their religion to fit the Roman model. The Talmud coming out later, a lot of people don't like the Talmud. There are good parts of it, there are bad parts of it, but it became the basis for the Quran. People aren't going to like that. So the truth has been corrupted and replaced. So again, what am I saying? I think that it's very possible that a third force, not Muslim, certainly not Christian, a third entity, be it the New World Order, be it the Luciferians, or be it a spiritual event, however it happened. It could have been a construction worker or whatever. It doesn't matter how it happened. The fact is that it happened. Is trying to tell us that that what we have is not really the truth, and that we've been fooled. And now, because of that, because we allowed ourselves to open ourselves up to the debauchery and the promiscuity. And when I say promiscuity, I'm not talking about men and women. Okay, there are other laws that govern that. People won't understand if I go there. I'll just tell you, that we become too tolerant of the things that will destroy us as nations and as individuals. And that, in my estimation, the taking down of Notre Dame and the mosque in Jerusalem was telling us, first of all, Lucifer, and that's not his name, but Lucifer would do that to discourage you, to frighten you, to unbalance you. He's not going to tell you that the origins of where those things came from, but they still want to send you the symbol that they're destroying that Christianity and they're destroying that type of Islam. Trying to tell you that their God is, it's like the Elijah thing in reverse, that their God is stronger than your God. Is that an easy way to... You remember Elijah called down fire from heaven to burn up the priests of Baal and their sacrifices? You remember that? Well, this is a copycat of that, but by the evil side. Why? Well, they got away with it for a lot of reasons. But they are trying to say that they're going to destroy. And Albert Pike said that in his books. That they're going to destroy Christianity, that because then everybody will understand that it was bad and that atheism is bad as a result of that, but that the true worship of the true God, Lucifer, they call it, again, that's not his name, that's just what I'm going to use here for everybody's understanding, is the true God. That's where this is going. And it's because we've allowed these false beliefs to come into us. We've denigrated the marriage system of the ancient patriarchs, which is what I warned about in the 80s, that if we continue to attack the marriage system of the patriarchs and accept the delusions and the debauchery and this whole transgender thing, all of that, if we allowed that to come in, God would judge us for it. We find fault in the covenant marriage system of the patriarchs, Abraham in particular, and we accept and we laud debauchery, transgenderism, etc. These are serious things. People don't understand how serious they are because it goes to the core of creation. We wonder why they're bringing in all of these migrants. It's because we've been told that families should only have 2 children. We've been told that we need to abort our children so that we can have jobs and have freedom and all of that. And that opened the door for these invasions. God is a God of increase, of abundance. And we've turned our back on that. And now we're reaping the rewards. We've found fault with those. And I'm not saying every system can be misused. You can have pedophiles in a group of celibates. I think we've seen that, right? The Catholic Church has been full of that. Or monogamous families, or any other type of marriage arrangement. Those things are not necessarily alone an indictment of the system that they're found in. They're a symptom of a corruption. Because the blueprint is pretty obvious. The basic blueprint is that God created man and woman for companionship, and it's the basis upon which everything else in Christianity was built, despite what you're told. And Satan attacked that right off the bat. I'll just use the word Satan. You could use Lucifer. They're not the same. But anyway, that was attacked right off the bat. And then it became the only reason for a man-woman relationship is for posterity. No, it's not. The very first reason was compatibility, companionship. And the fruits of that companionship are increase, if you can see what I mean by that. That's been subverted by Christianity, at least starting at the time of the Council of Nicaea. So we opened ourselves up to this destruction. And the outward manifestation that this has been a destructive system we saw yesterday. This book is also out of print now. I've told you all that you could get it in the past, and I told you, well, they took it off. They changed the system. I didn't catch it, and I'm not really up to republishing it. It didn't do that well anyway, and even what I'm saying now, I think most people, are pulling their hair out, turning off their computers, yelling and screaming, saying I'm an antichrist or whatever. Be careful about criticizing that which you do not understand until you look. Condemnation before investigation is a very bad idea. Let me just read a couple things from this book, just a couple. From my introduction, primarily. I'd like to read the whole thing, but I've already read, Conservative Treehouse, and this would be a little longer than that. But let me just read a couple of paragraphs here. Okay. Talking about Jesus' time and what he was actually trying to do, I refer to this. Since that time, various religions, governments, and sects, S-E-C-T-S, have tried to structure history from faith, from what they said was faith, and impose it upon us as immutable fact. We must examine, with particular demands on reason, all aspects of the evidence if we are to be honest with ourselves. A most important aspect of the character of God is that He has given us a desire to look for the truth. That is probably our most important function, is to look for the truth. Yet we constantly are learning and never coming to a knowledge of it. I used that analogy with Trump the other day, and everybody, we constantly have these investigations with no results. Kind of the same thing. As one author put it, to put dogma above truth is no way to honor God. One of these days, maybe I'll read the whole introduction. Putting dogma before truth is no way to honor God. I'm gonna put myself in your in a place here where, again, a lot of you won't like this. This is reading from page 261 of this book. It's the epilogue. Again, you're not going to like what I say here, but look where we are. Look what's happened to Western culture. Look what's happened to the supposed Judeo-Christian tradition that we've been told we have, but was really based primarily on Greco-Roman, because we apostatized from the truth. I'm going to read this and then I'll close. Maybe I'll go through chat for a few things. Take some of the ire from you folks on this. Quoting from my book, page 261, this book here, which is out of print. The myriad of organized religions, whether based on the New Testament, the Old Testament, or some other sacred writing, have found it advantageous to find fault with this ancient system of marriage to the point of also sustaining laws against it, and yet pushing transgenderism, homosexuality, pedophilia. You get the point. Their prejudice is only a result of their ignorance and lust for power. What did Satan first go after in the Garden of Eden? The relationship between Adam and Eve. Repeating this. Their prejudice is only a result of their ignorance and lust for power, for sex and love are one of the three things that a power seeker must attempt to control in order to bind the minds and hearts of the subjects. But the marriage system of the Hebrews and other societies is responsible for the very existence of many of these religions and the people who belong to them. Christ himself was a descendant of Abraham, David, Solomon, Judah, Israel, Jacob. Christ is credited with claiming to be a descendant of the Hebrew patriarchs and the family of King David. By judging that marriage system as odious and revolting, those at odds with it are simply declaring themselves bastard children and their religion false. And then I say, I am not a bastard. I know my roots. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how we can return to the truth when it's been so obfuscated, corrupted, hidden, but we better find a way. We better find a way real quick, and it's based upon that first and second chapter of Genesis. Whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, I don't really care, or if you're an atheist. Just the cause and effect of that is the reason why we're going down the road we are today. Edelson James, friendly reminder, buy more guns. Absolutely. I played the Second Amendment deal. Colonel Kurt Schlichter says, buy guns and ammunition. I say, amen. I say, for a political statement, if nothing else, go out and get that AR-15 or something similar. Okay, I'll go through a little bit of the chat here. I've kept you all for a long time today. All right. Is Lou SES Truthmeister? Yes, absolutely. Yep. That's another thing. See, we need to get rid of SES, and they put, laws and regulations in place, like this thing with keeping the D.C. attorney on the advisory council to the AG. See, all of these things are protections for them, for the people that do illegal things in our government. It's not to help us. We need to take this back, and Barr, I think, has shown that he's willing to go down that road. He's put himself, if this is true, wow, Barr's got a target on him. No doubt about it. Yeah, Claire Lyons, I like that. Seek first the kingdom of God. All things shall be given to you. I agree with that. But sometimes we accept a counterfeit because we're so anxious to. It's because inside of us, the good people, they want to bind themselves to what is true. So the first thing that comes along, they grab onto it and they say, God sent this to me. And it may not be the case. Only by experience and by humility and by repentance will you learn what the truth is. It's not automatic. That's a lie, okay? That you're taught, which is why I say that, it's a process. It's not something that happens because you say I accept Jesus as my Savior. That doesn't do it. You're not here to waste your time. If that's all it took, we could have done that long before here. you know. No, it's to test your heart and your mind and to find out if you're worthy. And I know people say, well, Jesus, nobody's worthy. Jesus does that. No, well, there's still a basic line of that is there that you have to make. There's still a bar that you still have to approach. It's not free. And, there are aspects of it that are free, but Notre Dame going down was a sign. It was, no matter who did it. Wow. Yeah, some of you guys know what you're talking about, apparently. Wow, this is the deep question. There are a lot of good ones here. Simply read, is there a creator God that will make all the evil right? No. No. He can set a place where only right exists. Only righteousness exists. Say it's a border. A border. Not everybody gets to heaven, right? God isn't going to eradicate evil. As a matter of fact, he said he created evil. I am God. I created the good and the bad, the good and the evil. But I can set up a border where only the righteous are. Yeah, he can do that. Yeah, because then it stays in the realm of freedom of choice, free agency. How does God know who's supposed to be in heaven? I had a really interesting sage tell me this one day. How does God know you're supposed to be in heaven? You show up. Oh, this is interesting. Tim Blosh, hey, any mod, want to block Becky anytime now it's distracting from me and beyond disrespectful. Thanks for catching that. I don't know who she is. Did they take her off? I don't see her, so maybe they took her off already. Let's see. The link provided is not to the article Roy is reading from. Did I make a mistake there? I'll double check that. Okay, I'll double check it later. Just be aware that it's the Conservative Treehouse. The article's by The Last Refuge, and I will show it to you. And I'll go back and check it later. It may have been that when I transferred it, I may have accidentally cut it off. Okay. And this is the name of it. I'll put it up here. Let me make sure that you're going to be able to see this. All right. That's the corruption and influence of Jesse Liu. You see, it's the conservativetreehouse.com, and it's an article by The Last Refuge, and I believe it was written yesterday. Let me see. Yeah, one day ago. It was written yesterday. And I will double check that link when I get off. Okay, I can't do it while I'm here, unfortunately. Okay, go back to the chat. And I'll only go for another 5 minutes or so. It's getting late now. Watchman on the wall, that's right. God loves the righteous and God is angry with the wicked. But we've got to make sure that we know who he's talking about there. It's not somebody who violates some little, nuance. It's not a couple of kids, having sex out in the field because they're innocent and they just love each other. Because that can be fixed. It's not somebody who you know, the God's talking about a very specific group of people when he says that. He's talking about idol worshipers who actually are denigrating their own creative, the fact that they're a majesty of creation and they're worshiping a creation of their own hands, an idol, be it AI or be it a statue. God doesn't like that. Not because it hurts God's feelings, but because it's hurting you. You're putting yourself down. Why do you think Darwin and all of these people, and I like your comment here, but just take it a little bit further. Why do you think Darwin and the Huxleys and all of that group tried to make it so mankind doesn't have an identity to God, doesn't have a connection to God, that they said, oh, you're a creation of evolution, which they've never been able to prove. They've never come up with that. It's in direct violation of the second law of thermodynamics, which I've talked about before. They did it for that very same reason. They're the wicked ones. They're who God's talking about. So I'm glad you brought that up. Timmy Marie Purdy Travel, Hillary, did the cane enable her to do that? It's a good play on words. I like that. Yeah, religion was invented by people to control and rob others. Absolutely true. The truth makes you free. It doesn't make you subject to anybody else. That's a political construct. That's a community construct. But when it comes down to your personal life, and this is why I don't condemn people that are going off into these debauchery areas. Sometimes they just got to go there to find out it doesn't work. For instance, I know a lady who engaged in some really debauchery, quite a bit of debauchery most of her life. And it took her most of her life to finally realize that that was a mistake. Was she evil? No, but she was misled. And once you're misled, if you're stiff-necked and hard-hearted, then you fight against God. That's where the problem comes in. That's when you say, I refuse to repent because I just got to be the way I am. Well, then all of your experience that you have set yourself against, that's trying to show you that that wasn't the way, then you're fighting against God. Clarence Elliott says, don't cross the line of the no-hide laws by telling the truth, Roy. Yeah, apparently, and I don't know this for a fact, but people are saying that President Bush signed into law the no-hide laws back in whatever day it was. I can't swear to that. All I know is the no-hide laws are not. They're the very same thing that Jesus was talking about, that was saying that the legalese guys set up stakes and told you not to cross them. In other words, they how do I say this? They established as commandments, they stated as commandments what were really the prejudices of men. I don't know how else to say it. There's another way in the scriptures that it's said, but I think you get my point. This was done for a lot of legalese reasons. But yeah, the no-hide laws are a Talmudic expansion of actually almost a replacement. And I could get into the history of that and why those are not true, but because they ring true to some extent, they kind of sound true, but they're really not. They really are not what the truth is. It's a method of control. Okay. I don't know who this Becky is. Oh, there we are. Becky. Oh, so somebody did take her out. Thank you very much. I got all those complaints, so I knew something must be up. Who's here? Well, who of my mods are here right now? Let me see. I got to run down here. Liza Jean, you're here. Okay, thank you, thank you. Liza Jean's taking care of me as she often does, and I don't see Kay Smalls here or Roosevelt, but thank you, Liza Jean. You're right on. You're right on the work there. I appreciate it, because you know me. I get to talking and I don't shut up. I keep going. Yeah. Okay, golly, we've been going for an hour and almost 50 minutes. Danny Arrington, you're not saying this incorrectly. I understand. He says Matthew 10:23 doesn't say don't marry black people to be Christian. Doesn't say don't be tempted by homosexuality or read the Bible every day and be in church daily. It says confess me before men. Confessing Jesus before men is confessing Torah. I'm sorry, but Jesus said, I am the Word. I am the light and life of the world. I am the truth. And his real name in his time, what he was really considered to be, was the Taheb, which means the restorer of the ritual implements of Moses. So these are nice words to say, confess me before men, but who are we confessing? I'd like to tell you about a little thing that happened to me, but I can't because you won't understand it. And I don't mean to insult you. But it goes back to what I said before. Modern Christianity is not Judeo-Christian in its basics. It's Greco-Roman. So which one are you going to confess before men? The Greco-Roman version that you have been fed for 1,800 years? Or the true one? And Roy, who are you that you think you can tell what the difference is? I'll let you judge. What you judge of me, what you think of me is none of my business. Michael Powell, absolutely. He gave it to kings to research a matter. Do not deny your calling. Very good. The scripture says it's the honor of God to conceal a thing. It's the glory of God to conceal a thing. It's the right of kings to search a thing out. Very good. Michael Powell, I like that. Yeshua ben Elohim HaMashiach. Very good. Okay. We've pontificated enough today. You've listened to me long enough. Thank you for coming. Let's pray. I want Trump to succeed in what he said he was going to do. But only he can abide by the promises he made. We can remind him, we can call him to it, but he's got to get back to that. He has to. Maybe he finally made a good decision here in Barr. We've all been wondering, but as I've showed you today, there's some really good possibilities here that Barr is serious. Maybe Barr has repented. Maybe he has had an epiphany. These are perilous times. I had a lady the other day who I have a lot. I think she's Christian, but she's into the Jewish, Israelite stuff too. She might be just Jewish. I'm not sure, but I don't go that far with people. I talk principle, not tribalism. But she sent me this thing, and she might be right. I don't even know how to say it. Other than that, we're in for a ride. She says, prepping, praying, and staying out of the way. That little thing I say, prep, pray, stay out of the way. She says, I don't think that's going to be enough anymore. We might actually have to do something. Just don't take anything into your own hands. Let's wait until, hopefully, somebody with some competent authority will take a stand. A lot of sheriffs are right now. I've talked about that on the Second Amendment issue. Get behind your sheriff. Don't become a part of his posse, and don't let the state legislature exercise its unholy and its violation of its oaths and try to come and take these sheriffs away. Protect them. They are worth protecting, whatever means it takes. I'll just say it at that. God bless you. God bless yours. God bless the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America and the Second American Revolution. And may God unstop President Trump's ears and get to his brain and his heart. I want it to go down that road, but we can only force that to so far, and then it's out of our hands. Pray that Barr does in fact send these criminals, these traitors, these demons to the pit. The latter-day Davidic king. I'm not saying it's Barr. Okay, I'm not saying that. It says in some other writings that he will repent of his evil doing and make things right. So maybe that spirit be in Barr. All right. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to put a long ending here. I'll put up a slow one, or I'm sorry, a slow one. I'll put up one that's short. And if I can find it, there it is. Till next time. Thanks.